The year was 1930. A fur trapper named Joe LaBelle, a man of grit and solitude, approached the Inuit village on the shores of Lake Anjikuni. The chilling silence that met him was immediate, thick, and profoundly wrong. Not a single soul stirred in a place that should have been teeming with life and activity. LaBelle expected the familiar sounds of children playing, dogs barking, and the general hum of a thriving community. Instead, only the biting Arctic wind whispered through the empty dwellings. Every trace of the hundreds of inhabitants had simply vanished. This wasn't a temporary absence, it was an eradication. The cooking pots, still containing charred food, sat over long dead fires. Weapons lay undisturbed, clothing remained folded, and tools were exactly where they had been left. The village was preserved as if its residents had just stepped out for a moment, never to return. The mystery of their instantaneous departure, without a single sign of struggle or distress, would forever haunt the desolate shores of Anjikuni. This unsettling quiet would soon be compounded by another macabre discovery in what became known as the frozen dogs and empty cabins. And before we dive deeper, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. These mysteries aren't random, and if this video found you, it was meant to. Now let's go. When LaBelle pushed deeper into the abandoned settlement, the scene grew even more disturbing. He found several sled dogs, crucial to Inuit survival in the harsh north, but they were all frozen solid, starved to death, despite ample food stores nearby. Their emaciated forms were a stark contradiction to the perfectly preserved village. The cabins themselves contained personal belongings, untouched and unlooted. Spears, furs, and even precious family heirlooms were left behind, suggesting no raiders or hostile forces had played a part in the disappearance. It was as if the villagers simply evaporated, leaving their most vital possessions in suspended animation. This detail defied logic. Why would people abandon their dogs to die slowly and leave behind everything necessary for survival in such an unforgiving environment? The frozen dogs and the untouched cabins painted a picture not of flight, but of an immediate, inexplicable translation. The next discovery, however, would plunge this incident from baffling to truly horrific, revealing the open graves. As LaBelle continued his grim survey, a horrifying detail emerged that shattered any remaining conventional explanations. He discovered that several graves in the community's burial ground had been disturbed. It wasn't the work of grave robbers seeking valuables, for the graves were not just opened, but emptied. The heavy stones used to mark the final resting places had been carefully moved. The bodies within, however, were not simply missing. They were gone without a trace. This was not vandalism or desecration as commonly understood. It was an act of complete removal. Neither animals nor humans would typically exhume bodies and then carry them away from the village. This inexplicable disturbance of the dead intensified the terror of the living's vanishing act. The removal of the deceased suggested a calculated, powerful force was at play, leaving no answers, only deeper questions. This chilling detail sent a shiver down LaBelle's spine, prompting him to seek immediate outside help. His urgent messages, however, would contend with the strange circumstances of dispatches from nowhere. Joe LaBelle, deeply unnerved, made his way to the nearest telegraph office to report the mass disappearance. He managed to send a message to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, detailing the eerie vacancy of Anjikuni village. The response, when it came, was immediate but riddled with inconsistencies. RCMP officers were dispatched to the lake, reportedly arriving within days, despite the treacherous Arctic conditions. Yet, the official records of their journey and initial findings were oddly vague, lacking the usual precision for such a high-profile case. It was almost as if the details were deliberately obscured, or perhaps the dispatches themselves were incomplete. Some accounts claim LaBelle himself only barely escaped strange encounters during his hurried departure from the silent village. The transmission of his desperate plea seemed to echo the unsettling nature of the event itself. The official timeline of the RCMP's response, when later scrutinized, revealed significant holes and bizarre contradiction in the official timeline. The official RCMP report, when finally released, described their timely arrival and subsequent investigation. Yet, it dramatically downplayed the size of the vanished population, reducing hundreds to mere dozens. This discrepancy immediately raised red flags for anyone familiar with the established history of the Anjikuni settlement. Furthermore, the report made no mention of the exhumed graves or the frozen sled dogs, details that LaBelle vividly recounted. It focused instead on the unexplained absence of the villagers, carefully avoiding any specifics that might lead to truly unsettling conclusions. This official narrative crafted a far less dramatic picture than the one LaBelle had witnessed. This blatant contradiction between the eyewitness account and the official documentation suggested either gross incompetence or, more insidiously, a deliberate obfuscation of the truth. It implied a desire to control the narrative, perhaps to prevent public panic, or to bury something far stranger than a simple disappearance. Such inconsistencies paved the way for various theories of rational disappearance. In the decades following the Anjikuni incident, various rational explanations were proposed, attempting to demystify the unsettling events. Some theories suggested the villagers had simply migrated en masse, perhaps due to dwindling resources or an outbreak of disease. However, this failed to explain the untouched belongings, the ample food stores, and the perfectly preserved camps. Other hypotheses pointed towards a sudden, tragic accident, like a mass poisoning or a natural disaster. But where were the bodies, the signs of struggle, or the collapse? The total absence of human remains and any evidence of chaos made these explanations ring hollow. The silent, pristine village defied such mundane interpretations. Then, there was the idea of a murderous rampage by a rival tribe or trappers. This too fell apart under scrutiny. There were no signs of violence, no tracks leading in or out, and again, no bodies. The sheer scale and speed of the disappearance, coupled with the incongruous details, rendered all conventional theories inadequate. These rational attempts to explain the vanishings only underscored the profound questions that continued to be privately addressed through whisper networks and suppressed testimony. While official channels struggled to provide coherent explanations, whispers circulated through the northern communities, passed from trapper to indigenous elder, from prospector to pilot. These unofficial accounts often spoke of strange lights in the sky preceding the incident, or an unusual atmospheric pressure that settled over the lake. Such stories were often dismissed publicly, but held a chilling weight in private. Some elders recounted ancient legends of sky people, or beings who could take entire populations without a trace. These were not public claims but sacred oral histories, shared with hushed reverence. They hinted at forces far beyond human comprehension, far more alien than a simple migration or accident. Any who spoke too openly of these strange possibilities often found themselves subtly discouraged or even silenced by authorities. This suppression only fueled the deep-seated belief that the official narrative was incomplete, that something truly extraordinary had transpired at Anjikuni. The recurring pattern of sudden and complete silence, a phenomenon far more widespread, became known as the stillness pattern. The Anjikuni case, while particularly dramatic, was far from an isolated incident in the vast, unforgiving Canadian wilderness. Investigators, and later independent researchers, began to notice a recurring motif. places suddenly devoid of all life, eerily silent, with mundane objects left exactly as they were. This was dubbed the stillness pattern. It wasn't just human settlements. Hunters reported finding entire trap lines undisturbed, animals absent from their usual territories. Hikers spoke of moments when the forest would fall into an unnatural quiet, all animal sounds ceasing abruptly, a profound hush that felt deeply wrong before snapping back to normal. This pattern suggested a momentary suspension of natural order, a snapshot of activity frozen, and then simply gone. It defied logical explanation and transcended mere disappearance. The stillness implied an instant, surgical extraction from the immediate environment. Such inexplicable patterns begged the question, was this an abduction or migration? The sheer abruptness of the Anjikuni disappearance, coupled with the preserved state of the village, fueled theories far beyond simple human migration. The lack of tracks, the untouched possessions, and the absence of any distress signals pointed away from a planned exodus. Instead, many wondered if it pointed towards something more like an abduction. If it was an external force, what kind of force could remove hundreds of people so swiftly and completely? The idea of a mass migration, even a sudden one, couldn't account for the exhumed graves or the starved dogs. These details suggested an immediate, perhaps involuntary, removal. Could it be that the villagers were not just gone from the village, but gone from this plane of existence? The distinction between a temporary journey and a permanent forced removal became a central, troubling question. This question was made even more profound by reports of phenomena in the sky. Adding another layer of mystifying elements to the Anjikuni case were persistent reports of unusual aerial phenomena witnessed by trappers and pilots in the general region around that time. Stories circulated of strange, glowing lights, often described as cigar-shaped or spherical, moving silently and at incredible speeds across the Arctic sky. These sightings were not isolated incidents, but seemed to cluster around the same period as the village's disappearance. Witnesses, often rugged, unsentimental individuals, described an unnerving silence accompanying these aerial objects, a soundlessness that mirrored the silent village itself. They seemed to appear and vanish just as inexplicably as the villagers. While easily dismissed as mere folklore or misidentification, the consistency of these reports, combined with the inexplicable nature of the Anjikuni vanishing, painted a larger, more unsettling picture. The presence of these sky phenomena lent credence to theories that transcended terrestrial explanations. Theories the official word, however, would inevitably fall silent on, revealing only government silence and discredited memory. In the aftermath of the Anjikuni incident, a pattern of official non-response and discrediting emerged. The RCMP report, as detailed earlier, minimized the event significantly, reducing its scale and omitting crucial, disturbing details. Subsequent inquiries or attempts to reopen the case were met with bureaucratic stonewalling or outright dismissal. Any individual who spoke too loudly about the strange lights or the precise details Joe LaBelle recounted often found their credibility subtly undermined. They were labeled as fantasists, exaggerating for attention, or simply mistaken. This systemic dismissal created a vacuum of official information, forcing the truth into the realm of rumor and local legend. The message was clear. There was nothing truly unexplainable at Anjikuni, only misunderstanding and exaggeration. Yet, this very silence, this deliberate attempt to bury the bizarre, only fueled the persistent questions and allowed the story of Anjikuni to echo across the north. The story of Lake Anjikuni refused to die, echoing across the vast, frozen landscapes of the north. It became a chilling, cautionary tale, whispered around campfires, and passed down through indigenous families. The official narrative failed to quash the deeper, more unsettling implications. Similar reports, accounts of sudden, inexplicable vanishings, strange lights, and an unnerving stillness in remote areas, continued to surface from other parts of the Canadian and Alaskan wilderness. These individual incidents, each with its own baffling details, seemed to resonate with the blueprint left by Anjikuni. They suggested a pattern, a recurring anomaly that defied boundaries and conventional logic. The silent village became a symbolic marker of the unexplained, a reminder that some mysteries refuse to be contained by official pronouncements. It became a touchstone for anyone who felt the cold brush of the unknown. This profound and lingering mystery, still unresolved today, serves as a stark reminder that perhaps you were meant to hear this. The story of Lake Anjikuni is more than just a historical anomaly. It is a chilling whisper from the vast, unexplored corners of our world. It stands as a testament to the fact that not all questions have answers, and not all events fit neatly into the framework of our understanding. The silent village, the frozen dogs, the empty graves, they all point to a world far stranger than we often allow ourselves to believe. Perhaps it's a warning, a reminder of unknown forces at play in the quiet expanse beyond our cities. You encountered this story not by chance, but by a subtle pull towards truths that linger just beyond the veil of everyday comprehension. This isn't just about a vanished village. It's about the pervasive mystery that can intrude on any life, at any time. The unsettling quiet of Anjikuni resonates because it touches upon our deepest fears of the unknown, of a sudden, inexplicable removal from existence. It asks us to look beyond the rational, into the profound silence that can envelop everything we know. The truth, or rather the absence of it, remains unnerving. Make sure to subscribe for more videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.